This is the same source code as previous tutorial. A function named c::getVertices is first defined. This function is then called in the file. Let's now run the code in this file. GetVertices function is first defined and then called. Click on the flickering AutoCAD icon in the taskbar and switch to AutoCAD. You are now supposed to select the fence polyline. Instead, you pressed Enter key by mistake. Visual Studio Code icon is now flickering for grabbing attention. Let's switch to VS Code and see what's the matter. As seen here, execution is halted at line number 5. You can see two yellow-colored markers. One showing the line in which the error occurred and the other showing the exact location of the error. Let's examine why this error occurred. In this statement, you are supposed to select a polyline, but you pressed Enter. That's why the variable ply will be nil after this statement. Ply is nil here, and char of ply is also nil. Int get expects an entity name in the argument, but nil is passed here. And this is the cause of the error. We want to handle situations like this gracefully. Tell user why the program failed, and then exit. Error is occurring after line number 4, so immediately after that, we have to test if variable ply is holding some value, or is nil. We are adding an if block here. Code inside this if block will run if variable ply is nil. Message no polyline is selected is printed in the console. And the function exits, returning the value of -1. Let's test our code now. This message tells that the previous debug session is still running. We have to stop this debugging session first. If Enter key is pressed here, instead of selecting polyline, a message should be printed, and function should exit. But this is not seen happening here. Program is still producing the old error. We now have to look into this and see why this is not behaving as expected. First draft of any sizable code will never be perfect. You have always keep the code refining. It's an ongoing process. Let's dive in the code and find out what's going wrong. If variable ply is nil, the code is expected to enter the if block and execute the code for true condition enclosed in the prog n block. The red dot seen in the left margin is a breakpoint. When we run the code with Start Debugging option, execution is halted at the breakpoint, as soon as breakpoint occurs. Now, select Start Debugging from the View menu. GetVertices function is first defined, and then executed at line number 23. If enter is pressed, instead of selecting polyline, variable ply will remain nil. Code flow will enter the if block just after, and breakpoint will be hit. Let us see if this happens. Oh, no. This is not seen happening. Code flow doesn't enter the if block, and the breakpoint is not hit. Let's add 2 more breakpoints, as shown, and start debugging the code again. Breakpoints are added by clicking in the left margin. Let us start debugging again. Press enter instead of selecting polyline. First breakpoint is hit. This line tests if the variable ply is nil. Code execution is halted, and we can see the yellow marker at the line where execution is halted. At this stage, if we hover mouse over any variable, value of that variable is displayed in a tooltip. Apart from this, who can see a snapshot of values currently stored in all the variables defined in the left side panel. Debugging is just briefly touched in this video. It deserves a separate lesson and will be covered in all the details in future. You can continue the halted execution either by selecting Continue from the Run menu or by pressing F5 function key. There are quite a few other options there, will be covered in details afterwards. After continuing the execution, it is observed that the execution flow doesn't enter the if block, although condition of if block is satisfied, that is, value of ply is nil. After going through the code again and pondering a bit, I found what went wrong. Oops! I did it again. Condition statement of if block was not surrounded by round brackets. After adding the brackets, we are running the code again. Don't select polyline, just press enter. Execution halts at first breakpoint, at line number 5. Continue the execution. Aha! At last! You can see, the execution flow has now entered the if block. Second breakpoint is next line is hit. You can see the yellow marker on line number 6. It worked. As you keep hitting continue, all the 3 breakpoints are hit one by one, and finally, the function exits prematurely because of the call to VL exit with value. Message no polyline selected is printed in the console. Situation of user not selecting anything is handled here. Can you add one more condition? What to do if the user selects something else than the polyline?